Hello and welcome to Idea Gen TV's 17 Days of Sustainability. Today we are honored and happy to welcome on a global leader and friend of Idea Gen, Camila Borda. Camila, welcome.
Hi, it's so wonderful to be back.
It is so great to have you here on today's show on Idea Gen TV. Last time we were talking was in person at one of our events. So this is slightly different, but it's still great to see you and hear what insights and perspectives you have for the 17 days of sustainability.
Likewise, I'm extremely honored, very excited to be here, and I can't wait to see what this amazing event is gonna bring to the world.
Well, Camila, thank you. And diving right into the interview, can you tell our global audience a little bit about yourself, as well as your role and responsibilities as head of sales development and strategy at Google, but also your other role as CEO of Just a Squiggle?
Absolutely. Yes, I like to think about it that I'm splitting in half. So yeah, I'm the head of sales development at Google. What my role means is that I empower our sellers to think customer first. I empower them to utilize insights, research, and consult our customers on how to recommend the best digital strategies. So that's kind of one side of my life, and then the other side of my life is my own company. I'm the founder and CEO of Just a Squiggle, a company dedicated to spark your brain to think differently and really utilize creative thinking to solve the world's biggest problems.
That's incredible. And what a task, wearing two hats, doing not only just your work at Google, but also being a CEO of your own company. And we applaud you and congratulate you for that.
Thank you very much.
So, Camila, obviously we are in a global pandemic, and a few months ago, Google made the announcement of having all of its employees work from home until around the summer of 2021. How are you and your colleagues adapting to this change, and what challenges have you faced so far with the work from home, mindset?
Yes, absolutely. I think these are unorthodox times, and unorthodox times call out for very different type of ways that we've done work, lived. So Google was the first company to actually come up and give us a roadmap of what was going to happen in the next year to really allow for flexibility, especially thinking about that many of us are parents, thinking about people have to move homes, sign leases, things like that. So our company was really, really devoted to make sure our lives were protected. And that's why allowing this flexibility and give us a timeline really helped us to make sure that we were making the best decisions and taking care of not only our customers, but also taking care of ourselves. And change is a constant at Google. And a lot of the businesses and a lot of organizations around the world, you might say, well, change is always, it's always on the table. And you just have to be a little bit more adaptable. So from a Google perspective, we did many things to adapt to our current customer climate, the same way that many other industries. But from a personal perspective, I had to think about how to engage with my team, making sure that I was making a good engagement with my customers. I did yoga with my team over VC. We did cooking classes. Like, we had to be very, very creative on how do we maintain people engaged? How do we provide value to our customers? How do we make sure that we are making the best out of what we have and the circumstances that we're living, and always trying to make the world a better place. So I think it's a mindset more than anything else.
That's right. A mindset. I like how you put that, and also how you had to adapt. How we all have had to adapt. But not only did we have to adapt, but adapt quickly. It's I always find it very impressive how all of these companies, send all of their employees home and still, haven't missed a beat, still getting the work done and still being very productive during these times. And that kind of leads us to our next question. You have to think of creative ways to keep working, to keep engaging with your team. I really like how you did yoga with your team. I mean, it really probably, ease them and let them focus a little bit more on work after that. How have you used innovation within your work at Google to help power through this global pandemic?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that constraints breed innovation. Some of the biggest creative leaps in history have come from constraints. Finding yourself constrained to do something, or having yourself to force your brain to think differently and figure out a solution that you've never thought before. So if you think about, like, for example, restaurants, the way that they have to adapt to a global pandemic and figure out ways in which they can still provide support for customers, they provide services, but they still have to impact their bottom line. So all of those things have been born out of constraints. The same thing goes to technology companies or with any other companies. We are faced with uncertainty and we're faced with change. And at that point is when we actually change our hats and we get out of our shortcuts mode and think about how do we think, and how do we approach problems in different way. What is a different angle that we've never done it, and should we and can we test it at this point? So I think the current circumstances have not been easy at all, but I think if we try to see the positive side of it, it could be that it has breed innovation for many companies across the globe. Technology being one of those areas in which a ton of uh, wonderful things have come out of this. The health, the fact that we are actually doing this virtual summits, the fact that the bandwidth of the internet in the world is actually providing us connectivity and maintaining us engaged and connected. All of those things have come from the fact that we were constrained and we have to figure it out. So those are areas in which not only Google but any company have been able to make the best out of what we had and really think about, we're never going to go back to what we used to be. This is probably a leap in history. And we have to really think about how our users have already evolved, how digital first became the norm, and how our businesses and how the way that our processes were created have to evolve to match what customers' behavior is now, and how it has changed.
Yeah, that's right, Camilla. It's it's going to be very interesting to see how, once we're out of this, when we're in the post-pandemic world, how companies will continue to move quickly and, efficiently into driving their next program or product. So it is kind of it's unfortunate with the situation, but it's also, exciting time to see where we come out of this whole situation and where all these other companies come out of this situation.
Exactly.
And so, as we said earlier, you're wearing two hats. So not only are you the head of sales at Google, but you're also an entrepreneur and started your own business and the CEO of Just a Squiggle. Can you tell our global audience a little bit about this new business and how you're using innovation to lead with Just a Squiggle?
Yeah, of course. I'm very excited about it. So Just a Squiggle is a creative thinking company, and it's dedicated to helping organizations and individuals unlock their hidden superpower and turn problems into possibilities through the power of creative thinking. So, just to give you an idea, creativity is ranked as the single most important skill in the world for all business professionals today to master. And I want to be there for you to help you master it. So, during my time at Google and my previous work experience, I've seen firsthand how creative thinking and how approaching problems in different ways can really breed innovation, can really help us think forward and think differently. And that generally impacts your bottom line. It helps increase the market share. It helps unlock diversity of thought. So imagine the potential of really making sure that that superpower that we have in our teams, that we have as individuals, we're really creating a pathway to unlock it and really turn problems into possibilities. So the way that we've always, the way that our brains work, it's generally by keeping us safe. And our brains take shortcuts. They don't necessarily want to get out of their normal way of doing things because that's ingrained, that's human, that's the way that we've learned. What I'm proposing here is creating a different roadmap and techniques to jumpstart your brain, kickstart your brain, and help it think thoughts it has never thought before. That's how innovation is created, by really untapping into your creativity and the creative thinking portion of your brain to solve problems in unorthodox ways. So that's what Justice Squiggle is it's here to accomplish, and the possibilities are endless. This is something that a small company can use. This is something that an individual can use. This is something the biggest organizations in the world, like yourself, can use to make sure that we're going from problems to possibilities.
That's incredible, Camila. And I think, now more than ever is the time to where, we need to tap into those superpowers that we have and use creative thinking to help take us, into the next, into this post-pandemic world and into the future. So it's incredible and fantastic to see you driving such a innovative charge. Switching gears a little bit, Camila, here at IdeaGen, everything we do, all of our events, virtual and in person, we have a focus with the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. During this time, during the 17 days of sustainability, we want to create awareness about all of the goals and ultimately achieve all 17 by 2030. With everything happening in the world, what do you see as one of the biggest inhibitors in reaching the Sustainable Development Goals, and why?
I really believe is our ingrained human shortcuts, the way that we've always done it this way, or if it ain't broken, don't fix it. That type of mentality and mindset is the one that is going to inhibit us to be able to move forward. So really thinking about how do we should never stop iterating on processes, or we should never stop testing different ways in which we can accomplish a goal. So our all experiences, our all knowledge, and our all ways are always going to be in our way. Experience is great because it allows us to know and understand what might have worked and what might have not, but it also inhibits us from innovation. So what we want to do is collectively get out of that shortcuts mode. We want to make sure that we're pushing ourselves to think thoughts we've never thought before, to really understand that possibilities come from really understanding that what we have done in the past is not the only way that it could be done. So for the Sustainable Development Goals, it applies exactly the same thing. There's not only one specific way of doing something. It's about really thinking unorthodox ways in which we can solve the world's biggest problems. So again, our ingrained human shortcuts are the ones that are getting in our way, and we have to kickstart our brains to think differently.
That's right, Camila. No, that's absolutely right. And what a perfect way to kickstart our brain than creative thinking with just a squiggle. What a perfect way, huh? So Camila, obviously, we're in the global pandemic, the COVID-19 global pandemic, and we were making tremendous progress with achieving a lot of the UN goals. Quality education, gender equality, peace, justice, strong institutions. We've been making tremendous progress, but with the pandemic, we have hit a slight bump in the road, if you will. What sort of setbacks have you seen towards achieving goal number 9 of the UN, and all of them, but specifically goal number 9 of the UN SDGs? And what do you think is the best strategy to get back on track towards achieving the goal?
Yeah. So goal number 9, it's all about innovation, infrastructure, manufacturing. And I think the biggest issue that we've seen with COVID has definitely that it has hit heavily less developed countries. And with that comes additional pressure on an economic gap, social injustice, lack of positive climate for investments. And we need these investments and we need these conditions to be able to think about developing the manufacturing sector, scaling up scientific research, thinking about innovation and research and development. A simple example is, for example, infrastructure, the access to the web, the access to make sure that everyone in less developed countries have access to a source of knowledge like the internet. That is an important component of how do we move forward this goal. So more than ever, we need that access and investment in infrastructure and technology to accelerate the economic recovery, to create jobs, to reduce poverty, and to really stimulate productive investments. So I think it's a responsibility, and it's the time of our generation to rise up to the challenge and think expansively about not only problems that we're facing, but what are the areas in which we can all come together to really advocate, especially for the less developed countries, which has been suffered heavily with COVID.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more, Camila. That's incredible insight. Camila, so for the next question, it's a big question and it's ambitious, but what, Camila, are your 3 key pieces of advice that you would give in order to help achieve not goal 9 or goal 4, but all 17 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals?
Love that good old 3 advices that I can give you. First one, think about this moment in time as a creative opportunity, as a blank slate, a way in which we can force ourselves to make important changes that are needed to get out of that shortcut mode that I was telling you. This is a creative moment. This is a creative opportunity. So it's time for us and for organizations to give ourselves a little bit of permission to be expansive, to think about it, the what if. Can we? Yes, absolutely. But give ourselves the chance and the permission, not only to ourselves, but to our teams, to organizations, to our governments, to really think about it, about the what if, and consider this moment as a creative opportunity. The second piece of advice that I would leave you with is this is also a great moment to foster an untapped diversity of thought. The more ideas, the better. When we're talking about innovation specifically, quality equals quantity. The more ideas, the better the end result of that solution. So imagine the potential of bringing more people into contributing to think expansively about how to solve the world's biggest problems. I think this is a moment for everyone to contribute, and it's everyone's responsibility to think about a more sustainable future for all. And then in third place, I would say really leverage technology to create the future. Think about how this crisis has accelerated the digitalization of many businesses and industries. And we're not going to go back. So really thinking about how do we leverage technology for what comes next? Every single piece of our world has changed. Every behavior that we had probably changed in some way or form. And instead of being cautious about the utilization of technology, I would advise to think about how to utilize that tool, that asset, to really build the future and create a new future. So those would be my 3 pieces of advice. Really creative. Think about this moment in time as a creative opportunity. Unlock diversity of thought. Bring more people into it, and then technology to create the future.
That's just incredible. I think if everyone, would follow those advice, we would achieve, and we will achieve, the goals by 2030. So thank you. Camila, we're here during the 17 days of sustainability with our global audience, creating awareness, and like I've said, working to ultimately achieve the goals. What is your post-summit ask for our global audience as we continue to change the world and achieve these goals?
There's an American author that I love. His name is Zig Ziglar, and he said, "You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great." Mm-hmm. So if we want to change the world, and if we want to make advancements in our goals, we all need to start somewhere. And it can be a small contribution, or it could be a big contribution, but we all have to be committed to doing it. Change won't wait for us. Business leaders, educators, governments, we all need to be proactive in thinking differently and act. And change starts with every single act. Mm-hmm. So there has never been a better moment to change the world than now. So let's start somewhere and let's create some change.
That's incredible. Camila, thank you so much for the incredible insight as we work to achieve achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Before we leave and finish up this interview, we talked about creative thinking and your work at Justice Squiggle, but what would you like to share with our global audience about creative thinking and how we can use creative thinking to achieve some of the world's most vexing issues?
Fantastic. Well, I would love to share with the audience that it's easy to provoke the genius within, and that the solution to the world's biggest challenges might be just a squiggle away. So, I would love to share with you a couple of techniques and tactics that can really help instill this mindset of innovation and really help us untap creative thinking for all. How does that sound?
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Perfect. So, let's get started. So, as we were speaking a couple of minutes ago, we were thinking, so what happens now? What happens after a pandemic? Amidst economic slowdown, amidst social divisions, amidst economic changes like automation, that in just 5 years from now will render 35% of the skills that are seen as completely necessary, completely obsolete. And by 2030, not only may we actually reach irreversible climate change, but more than 800 million people could actually lose their jobs to robots. Just think about it, as if one day the entire European continent would wake up without a job. So this might actually make you feel hopeless, even helpless. We're always looking for someone out there, something to help us cross this bridge, or a creative genius that can help you there to solve a problem. But yet I think we're actually looking in the wrong place. I actually believe that not every hope is lost if we can untap into one of our most foundational human skills, one that can help us solve the world's biggest problems, and that is creativity. In a study done with more than 1,500 CEOs, they rank creativity above management, above discipline, even above vision. Okay? And the World Economic Forum ranked creativity as the single most important skill in the world for professionals today to master. That's why companies no longer want someone to just write code. They want someone who can dream up of a software that can help with an old problem. It's really thinking beyond the box. It's really thinking beyond what we have done before. But yet 61% of executives don't actually see their organizations as creative. And they're always waiting for someone else to come and provide a solution. But here's where I think we get it wrong. We're looking out there instead of looking in. We're looking in the wrong place. So for us to really think about how to be creative and how to really solve for the world's biggest problems, I want to prove to you today that the solution to those problems is often right in front of you. So what I'm going to ask of you right now is to just follow me with a couple of exercises that we're going to do. It's not going to require anything big from you, just a piece of paper and a pen. And I want to walk you through a couple of exercises. This is the first thing that we're going to do. I want you to draw a bird, okay? Any bird, any old bird that you have. And here's the trick. You have 20 seconds. So I'm just going to wait here for 20 seconds and we'll see where that takes us, okay? So go ahead. You have 20 seconds to draw a bird. Just a couple more. Yes, I'm sure you can do it. This is a good inspiration. We have a couple more seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go. Okay, so you just draw your bird. What does it look like? Have you seen that bird before? Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to do a different spin. I want you to take your piece of paper and pen and now just draw 5 squiggles. Just 5 squiggles. And you have 5 seconds. Go. Wonderful. So now what we're going to do is transform those squiggles into birds, okay? Let's add a few triangles here, a few dots here, start creating some squiggles, like this, okay? Let's give it 10 more seconds, okay? Have fun with it. Five seconds to go. Perfect. Let's give it a couple more seconds. Decide the one that you really like, the one that looks more like a bird to you. And just add a couple more twists to it, a couple more details. Let's give it 10 more seconds. Fantastic. It's becoming together. You can see it. It's almost a bird. Wonderful. And voila, you just discover a new species. And look how quickly you did it. So what does this prove? That you're a squiggle genius? Well, actually, yes. But it proves something even more important, that our creativity is often blocked off from us. The reason that happens is because our brain is wired to take shortcuts, okay? That's how our brain learns. It takes a piece of information that has used in the past and it just reuses it over and over and over again. That's great and it has great advantages. For example, we don't have to learn how to use a fork and a knife every time we eat, but it has some very big disadvantages. We stop testing and iterating on processes, products. We start taking shortcuts. And that is not great to innovate. Shortcuts keep us safe, but safe is no way to innovate. In a study done by the NASA on creative thinking level, 98% of the 1,600 5-year-old that they analyzed, they score on the genius level. But in a longitudinal study done through time, they saw that that percentage would decrease every year. By the age of 10, only around 30% of them would score on the genius level. By the age of 15, only 12%. And for everyone else, and for all of us that are 30 or plus more years, only 2% score on the genius level. So what this is actually telling us is, and I'm saying it's core because it's not that we're not all creative geniuses, is that we forgot how to access our creative thinking potential. To be able to take our brains out of that shortcut modes, we have to train our brains to think thoughts it has never thought before. And the way that we do that is with different type of techniques, but I want to share with you my favorite, which is with provocations, with something provocative that sparks your brain. Provocations are brain food. The more provocations you give your brain, the more powerful it becomes. Provocations is anything that takes you out of your normal way of doing things. It takes you out of your normal state. It makes you think thoughts that you've never thought before. It makes you think of ideas that were not even being conceived by your brain, right? So I'm going to give you a technique that we use that it's called the rules or assumptions. Every single situation, every single problem that you have, it has a set of rules and assumptions. You assume a couple of things about what you have in front of you. So what we're going to do is challenge those rules and assumptions to make sure that our brain starts thinking differently. So I'll give you an example. Let's say my challenge is to create a new bar in New York City. Not an easy task, let me tell you. But I'm going to first list all the different rules and assumptions that I have about bars. Well, I know that they have bartenders, they have a bouncer, they're loud, they're open at night, right? So those are my rules and assumptions. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to challenge it with 3 questions. What if I do something weird? What if I exaggerate the rule? And what if I do the opposite of the rule? So in this case, this is going to generate a list of ideas for us to work with. So in this case, what if I do something weird? Okay. Well, this bar is going to be inside a library. What if I exaggerate the rule? Instead of being open at night, it's going to be open 24/7. And what about if I do the opposite of the rule? Instead of having a bouncer, it will have a librarian at the door. So I'm forcing my brain to create different type of connections that it has never even thought about before. So in this case, my new bar idea in New York City, it will be the brand new New York City bar inside a New York City library, open 24/7, only if you can quote a book at the entrance. So this is called the revolution technique. Some of the biggest human leaps and creative leaps in history have come from the revolution technique. Someone somewhere started with the rules and assumptions about something. For example, humans cannot fly. And then some other people, like Leonardo da Vinci and the Wright brothers, decided to break the rules. So that's how it actually works. We are provoking our brain. We're making sure that it's thinking things it has never thought before. But you might be asking, okay, great. So I have some ideas. How do I know if those are good ideas? Well, in creative thinking, quality equals quantity. The more ideas you have, the better the quality of the final solution. Quite often, the best ideas come at the end of that list. So once you have given enough love and you have nurtured all of ideas, you have put them out there, then you can start thinking about reductive thinking, which puts processes in place for you to start thinking about value creation. So the best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas. And we want to make sure that we empower more people to come up with ideas. We have to signal to our teams, we have to signal to our bosses, we have to signal to our organizations, to our governments, that it is okay to be expensive, especially right now when we need more of ideas to move forward. So if you think about it, the creative thinking formula is expansive thinking, think as many things and ideas as you can. Then reductive thinking, let's put processes in place to analyze which one makes more sense. And that has to bring some value creation. That is exactly the power of creative thinking, the ability to untap into your brain's potential to solve problems in original ways. That's how we go from problems to possibilities. Accenture has calculated that more than $8 trillion the GDP of the world could increase more than $8 trillion if our innovation mindset would increase just 10%. So imagine the potential for your companies, for your organizations, for the world, if we could actually untap into our creative thinking power. Imagine the potential of having 10 more squiggles, your teams bringing 10 times more ideas to the table. Challenge the rules and assumptions about a situation to test and iterate. What would that look like for the world? What would that look like for our businesses? What would that look like for our sustainable goals? There has never been a better world, a better moment to change our world. So instead of being too reliant on the future of quantum computing, think about the quantum computing you have in your head. Let your ideas take flight. Your inner creative genius is just a squiggle away. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for having me.